Hola! Today we're going to talk about AR verbs and how to conjugate them or change them so that they agree with the subject in the context. There are three categories of verbs, just as an overview. In Spanish, we have verbs that are called AR verbs, and an example of that would be hablar, which means to talk. ER verbs, here's an example of that, comer, which means to eat, and IR verbs. Here's an example, vivir, which means to live. Now you can see that the reason we categorize them this way is because of the way they're spelled. So AR verbs end in AR, ER verbs end in ER, and IR verbs end in IR. The verb endings for AR verbs are on this chart. Now instead of having like just a separate word for each subject, now you have just endings that you'll be able to apply to all of the verbs in the specific category. So AR verb endings look like this. If my subject is yo, the ending on the verb is going to be an O. If my subject is tú, the ending will be as. If my subject is usted, él or ella, the ending will be a. For nosotros, amos, and for ustedes, ellos and ellas, an. So if you look at this chart, you notice that AR verb endings, that 4 out of 5 of them that I'm sharing with you have an A in the ending. So they're called AR verbs and they're AR endings. A couple of terms that I want to make sure you understand. Infinitive. An infinitive is the base form of the verb. And for an example, in Spanish, hablar, which in English means to talk. In Spanish, the infinitive always ends in an R. In this case, it's an AR verb, so it's hablar with ending in an AR. In English, the infinitive always begins with the word to. For example, to talk. Dance would be to dance. The infinitive form for eat would be to eat. Your Spanish teachers will use the term infinitive all the rest of the time that you're learning Spanish. So make sure you have that one written down in your notes. And also the word conjugate. Conjugate means to change the form of the verb so that it agrees with the subject. And again, your Spanish teachers are going to use this all through Spanish. So make sure you understand when the teacher asks you to conjugate a verb and make it that you want to make it agree with the subject. And that's what we're going to talk about today is conjugating verbs that are called AR verbs. So we're going to talk basically about 4 steps. We're going to break it down into 4 steps. When you understand this, you won't need to go through every step to get to your final answer. But in order to simplify it today, let's break it down into 4 steps. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at your infinitive form and you're going to drop the AR ending. And I hope you're taking notes as we're going through this because you'll be glad you did. So drop the AR ending, and then what you're left with is the stem. Next, you want to identify the subject. In this case, the subject is yo. Now, if you go to the chart, which sometime soon you'll have memorized, you'll see that if my subject is yo, my ending is o. And now the final step, I'm going to attach that ending to the stem. So I get the verb form hablo, which is translated I talk. Notice that I don't have to have the subject pronoun in there, yo. I can just say hablo, and that means, all by itself, it means I talk. Let's do another example. Drop the AR. You're left with the stem. In this case, your subject is tú. And if you refer to the chart, you can see that if the subject is tú, the ending is as. And now you're going to attach that ending to the stem so that you end up with the word hablas, which means you talk. And this is the informal one because originally I told you that the subject pronoun was tú hablas. How about if your subject is ella? Follow the same procedure. Drop the AR. You're left with the stem. Identify the subject, it's ella. For now, you can refer to the chart, and for ella, the subject verb ending is a. So that's what you're going to add to the end of the stem. So you end up with habla, which in this context is what we want to use for she talks. How about if our subject is nosotros? Drop the AR. You're left with the stem. Our subject is nosotros. Refer to your chart, and for nosotros, the ending is amos. So amos is what we're going to add to the end of the stem. So we get the word hablamos, which means we talk. If your subject is ellos, do the same thing, drop the AR. You're left with the stem. Your subject is ellos. If you refer to the chart for ellos, the ending is an. Add that to the stem, and you end up with the word hablan, which in this case is they talk. Let's use a different verb now. Estudiar. Follow the same procedure. Drop the AR. You're left with the stem, and notice that this stem is estudi. It's everything except the AR. So remember, only drop the AR when you're conjugating verbs, or the final two letters of the infinitive verb. My subject is usted. If I refer to the chart, I see that the ending for usted is a. So I'm going to add that to my stem, and I get estudia. And in this case, it means you study. In this case, it's the formal one because I said before that the subject was usted. Let's look at the verb bailar. Same procedure. Drop the AR. You're left with the stem. In this case, the subject is él. Refer to your chart. For él, the ending is a. Add a to the stem, and you have the verb baila, which in this case means he dances. Mi madre and comprar. Comprar means to buy. Drop the AR. You're left with the stem, which in this case is compr. Your subject is mi madre. If you refer to the chart, that's most like ella, so it's going to use the ending a. Attach that to the end of the stem, and now you have compra, which is the verb form we would use in this context to say, my mother buys. El maestro and the verb cantar. Drop the AR. You're left with the stem, cant. The subject is el maestro, and if you refer to your chart, el maestro is most like el, so the ending is a. We're going to attach the ending to the stem, so you end up with the verb form canta, which is what you would use if you wanted to say the teacher sings. Those are AR verb conjugations. Sometime soon you will need to have memorized all the AR verb endings. O, as, a, amos, an. And as long as it's a regular verb and it ends in AR, those will be the endings that you will use. I hope you've taken good notes on this. You can refer back to it if you need to. Your quiz for this week will be over AR verbs. So make sure you understand this and ask questions on its learning if you still need more help. Adios.